saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranang gacchami.
Tisarana gamanam sampunnam. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Panatipata velamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Adinādana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Adinādana velamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Kāpiksu viccācara veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Kāmesu miccacara velamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Suramiraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Suramiraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Tisaranina saddin pancasīlam dhammam sadukam surakitam katva apamādena sampādetavam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Samanta Cakkavalesu Tatra Gaccantu Devata Saddhammam Munirajassa Sunanto Sakkadukadam. Dhammasavana kalo hayam padam. Dhammasavana kalo hayam padam. Dhammasavana kalo hayam padam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I think
Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, good evening to all of you. It's nice to see that many of you have come after a tiring day of work. It's not like coming to Dhamma talk on the weekend. You all have come on a very busy day. And good to see that commitment, your interest to learn the Dhamma. So today's Dhamma talk is how we can develop mindfulness in our daily lives. Is my English simple and clear enough to you all?
Yes.
You can understand that. So, when we talk about mindfulness, what comes to your mind? What?
Focus.
Focus. Okay, what else? When we say it's mindfulness, what does that word mean to you?
Awareness.
Awareness? Okay. What else? Do you know the Pali word? What is it? It's the sati, being translated to mindfulness. Actually, sati means attention. Being able to be aware and place attention. Where? We can place attention anywhere we want, or we can live without paying attention at all. So first, from those two, which one should we choose? Should we pay attention, or we don't need to pay attention? We must pay attention wisely, yeah? To the proper place, the right place. So, when we place the attention then, where are we going to place? Where should we place our attention? What do you think? It's such a common word. Mindfulness is such a common word, but I think many people really haven't understood it in its deep sense to make use of it. So the question comes, where should we pay our wise attention? Is it on our neighbors? It is on our colleagues or family? Or is it on the thing that we do? Or is it in the present moment? Or is it in ourselves? Where? Out there or in here? Which one?
Inside.
Inside. So normally, where do we place attention? With no awareness, naturally, automatically our awareness goes to outside. Am I correct? Yes. So it's a natural process. You don't have to do anything. Your awareness will naturally focus on others outside. So this process is a passive process, not a passive process, active process, which you have to put some effort to bring your awareness and place your attention inside here, this one. That's when you can start to see things in here. How many of you know about yourself? Who you are, what you are about, how your mind works, how is the state of your mind, how is the state of your mood, how is this machine called myself works? Any of you know? If we talk about someone else out there, we know a lot of things. We got a lot of things to talk about. Yeah? Because our focus was attention was focused out there. So what Buddha taught actually is about getting to know yourself, getting to know ourselves. Now, in Buddhism, Buddha's teaching centers around suffering, yeah? And how to free ourselves from suffering. Suffering is a natural state. It's there. In the world, it's there. The world is based on suffering. It's born in suffering. So Buddha's focus was to help people to free themselves from suffering. Am I right? Buddha's teaching can be summarized in 4 noble truths. Are you familiar with 4 noble truths? Suffering, the cause of suffering, the ending of suffering, which is nirvana, and the way leading to ending the suffering, the noble eightfold path. You're familiar with that bit? Because that's like the essence of Buddhism. Everything you learn in Buddhism can be condensed into that. So, do we suffer? Do we have suffering? Do we have insecurity, instability, unsatisfactoriness? Huh? Do we have suffering in us? Or is it something happening out there? What are we talking about here when we talk about suffering? Who is suffering? Is it something that we all go through individually? Is it something that we experience, isn't it? Something the individual, this person experiences. So, if we are suffering, then if we are interested in getting rid of suffering and to find the ultimate happiness and peace and nibbana bliss, then we have to start focusing on ourselves. Because it's this one who is suffering, and we need to help this one to be free from suffering. So if we keep focusing the attention on outside, we won't be able to help this one to be free from suffering. When our focus is not on here, suffering will increase. Because we don't know what's going on. Yes? So it's very important we learn about the suffering and who is suffering and why the suffering is there, whether it can be ended. If it is, then how? So Buddha's teaching is Buddha realized what is suffering, and he realized the cause of suffering. He understood the cause of suffering, tanha. And then he managed to bring the suffering to an end. He attained Nibbana, he attained the Arahanthood. And then attain Nibbana means he managed to free himself from suffering 100% and found the ultimate happiness and bliss of Nibbana. A human being, the highest happiness, the highest bliss a human being can experience in one's lifetime is Nibbanic bliss. Yeah, in Mangala Sutta we talk about it. Attaining Nibbana is the highest happiness. That's what you chant towards the end of the Mangala Sutta, the life of blessings, the Sutta on blessings. Nibbana Satya Kiriyacha Etam Mangala Muttamam. This is the highest happiness, blessing that one can have in one's life. So then, after Buddha had ended his own suffering and finding that 100% peace and happiness and that Nibbanic bliss, after him experiencing it, he actually shared that news with the others. How to do it? He said it's possible. Even though this world is based on suffering, born from suffering, still there is a way out. We can make ourselves free from that suffering. How? He laid the path before us. He gave the guidance, or he showed us the path. That's called the Noble Eightfold Path. So it's very important for us to understand the Buddha's teachings in the proper sense. Now a lot of people, they do meditation. Yeah? If you ask them why, don't know. Because everyone is going to this meditation class, someone is teaching meditation, or some might say to get rid of stress, to calm down, to be able to focus more, to be able to have a clear mind. This will be the answers. If I ask you, you will tell many answers. And not even 1% would answer that they are doing it because they are interested in getting rid of the suffering, because they are interested in attaining Nibbana, which happens to be the goal of a Buddhist. Have you all seen when a Buddhist person dies, they put a banner or they write, "May he attain ultimate peace of Nibbanic bliss." Have you all seen that everyone making that wish? In Sri Lanka it's very common when there is a death, and before they enter that house, they put a big banner. Inside also. They put big posters everywhere. May he attain Nibbanic bliss. And I'm sure that's the case here also. I have seen the obituary notes. In the obituary notes, they write, may he attain final salvation, Nibbana. So all of a sudden we start to realize the purpose of our life, which may have forgotten while we are alive. But all of a sudden when we die, the people who are around us quickly realize it. So they wish, even though he is dead, they wish, may this person attain Nibbana. Is it possible? If we haven't worked for it while we are alive, is it possible for someone to attain Nibbana just because the others are wishing? Is it possible? Huh? Not really. So, to people with little bit of wisdom or even bit of intelligence should click that this is something that we must work on while we are alive. To get rid of suffering. Then whether it's going to happen this lifetime or the next lifetime or whatever, but will happen because we are working on it. If we don't work on it, it will never become a real thing. You'll never be able to realize it. So it's very important that we understand, if someone wants to get rid of suffering, we have to work on it. And we have to work with ourselves. It comes back to ourselves. And when we do it, so this mindfulness business comes an important one. Being able to pay attention to oneself, to within. Now, that paying attention, sati, is actually one part in the Noble Eightfold Path. If you all have a look at the chart where it says the Four Noble Truths, I think it's the last page. If you have a look at it, Samma Sati, harmonious attention, is the seventh step. Can you all see that? Seventh step is Samma Sati, normally translated as right mindfulness, right attention. So, for us to actually be able to do it properly, to the Buddha standards, there are some steps that we need to do beforehand. We can't just jump into number 7. We have to start from number 1. And then gradually we will end up in number 7. So it's very important that we understand that. But normally, today what we talk about, when people talk about mindfulness, it's a very lower grade of what Buddha has said. The Buddha standard of Samma Sati, paying attention, is a very higher standard. And it's actually at the end of the Noble Eightfold Path. This is like the final lap. When you do it properly, when you place your attention in the proper place properly, it leads you to get enlightened. because the next step is Samadhi, the tranquility of the mind, normally translated as concentration, and that's the end of the path. And Buddha teaches that if you practice this Samadhi properly, the right mindfulness, if you manage to put this, practice this attention business properly, that can only result in two things. What is it? Making someone an anagami or an arahat. Anagami is a non-returner, arahat is a fully enlightened being. So if we manage to do this properly, Buddha says in Mahasatipatthana Sutta, there can be only two results. One's returner or an arahat. Do you all understand about the steps in this path? Like the Soan means a stream enterer, Sakuradagami means a once returner, Anagami means a non-returner, and Arahat means a fully enlightened being. Have you all been exposed to that teaching? Not really, because I think your background is more the Mahayana, no? Yeah. These are the stages that someone will pass through if on the way to enlightenment. So this Noble Eightfold Path is the first teaching of Buddha. So after Buddha got enlightened, his first sermon called Dhamma Cakkappawattana Sutta teaches about these Four Noble Truths, about the Eight Noble Eightfold Path. The first teaching. Yeah. So whether you want to do it in one lifetime or you want to take a couple of lifetimes, it's up to you. But the whole teaching is about how to free ourselves from suffering and how to help others to free themselves from suffering. Because we are not going to do it selfishly. Buddha wasn't selfish. He attained it, then he started teaching. This is actually Buddhism is the first missionary in the world. Straight away after he got enlightened, he started to teach, and his first disciples, 60 of them, the first 6 disciples, after they got enlightened, he sent them away. He told them, Charata Bhikkave Charika, go and travel widely. Don't even travel in one road twice. 2 people should not go in one road also. Because you must maximize. You must reach to this wider community who are so confused, who are lamenting and crying, and there's misery, so much suffering going on, and they don't know what to do. These human beings, they really don't know how to find the real happiness. So he tells his first 60 disciples to go away and teach this Dhamma to this confused state of minds. And he says, give them a hand. Now you all have done your job. You're experiencing that beautiful happiness and peace and that nibbanic bliss. He says, go and help others. So he sent them away to teach this path to happiness and peace. So, in our daily life, when we talk about mindfulness, it's mainly what people mean is being able to pay attention to what you do. Yeah? They say if you're cooking at home, know that you're cooking. If you're chopping vegetables, know that you're chopping vegetables. If you're writing something, know that you're writing. If you're driving, if you're sweeping, whatever you do, know what you're doing. Okay, good. It's like the starting point. But there is more to do. Because you should be able to pay attention to what you're doing in the moment, but that's the starting point. From that onwards, there is something else that we have to focus. That is, starting from that, we need to really focus on ourselves to know what's really going on inside. When we are doing something, you can be cutting and chopping the vegetables or cooking, but inside also can be boiling and cooking too. While you're doing, oh, no one is coming and helping me, I have to do everything like that. No? When you're working at office, you may be focusing, okay, I'm working, but you may not see, if you don't focus inside, how the state of the mood and your mind. The state of your mind, you may not see. Only if you focus inward, then you will start to realize actually what's going on in there. Am I right? Because we can do things, we can even focus, but we may be developing our greed, hatred and delusion while we are doing that. Yes? You're familiar with greed, hatred and delusion, yeah? That's the cause for all suffering. Greed, hatred and delusion. To put it in simple languages. So, while we are working, while we are doing, we can pay attention. But we may not know, if we don't pay attention to inside, we may not know what's going on inside. Whether we are reacting or whether we are actually doing it, using our common sense and rational thinking, but not reacting or not being emotional. Yeah? So only if you pay attention to inside, you will be able to see whether you have any emotions, whether you are charged, or you are doing things with a cool and a calm mind. Now, which state of mind is better? Having a cool and a calm mind and working rationally and logically, using your intelligence, or doing things with emotions, with desires, with dislikeness, with anger, with hatred and with jealousy, with fear. Which one is better? Which one do you prefer? Huh?
The first one.
First one, huh? Why do we prefer first one? Because in the second ones I mentioned, the emotions bring you suffering. It is a real disturbance. It makes you very unhappy. And it brings real suffering. Yes? But if you can manage to work with a cool head and a calm mind, and with having a lot of loving kindness, with compassion, with understanding, with patience, with all these good qualities, and coupled with your wisdom, if you can live your life like that, you can actually minimize your suffering. Can you see that? So now, at the beginning I told you, this whole teaching of Buddhism is actually revolving around how to free ourselves from suffering. And that's a human quest. Did you know that? The human quest is to find happiness and peace. This is what you've been looking since the day you are born. Can anyone, if anyone is here who like to suffer, who like to be unhappy, who like to feel miserable, who like to be emotional, can you put your hand up? No one, huh? No one. In fact, all beings, not even just the human race, all beings don't like to suffer. Everyone's quest is to be happy, to be peaceful. This is why even today, the marketing they use when they do advertising. You buy this, you can have peace of mind. And actually it resonates with people. Because this is what you've been looking for since the day we are born. When a baby is born, do they come out from the mother's womb laughing? crying. Huh? Everyone in fact comes crying. Why? From that point onwards, even when you're in the womb, you're suffering. But even that point, when you're just born to the world, we are born into suffering. Huh? We are born with a cry, with a complaint. It's not pleasant. That's what the baby is saying. That's why the baby is crying. So from that point onwards, what we look forward is to have happiness and peace. But do we get that? No. Everything you do in your life is actually to find happiness and peace. If I ask you, why do you all go to work? To live happily, huh?
Livelihood.
Yes, okay. Let's work from there, huh? Okay, why do you go to work? It's a livelihood. Why we have to choose a livelihood? To earn money. Yes, that is to earn money. Why do we earn money? Why do we need money?
Support our family.
Support oneself and the family. Yeah? Why do we have to support ourselves? What are we supporting to?
Our survival. We have to eat. Biological needs.
Okay. It is to support ourselves to eat, to get rid of the suffering called hunger. You want to find comfort. When the hunger comes, there is suffering. It's one of the biggest suffering that we face, never ending one, until we live. So to get rid of that suffering, you have to give some food and drinks, keep giving it. So to do that, you have to go and find some money. And then when you get sick, another type of suffering, physical and mental illness hits, suffering. Then what you have to do, you have to take medication. Why? You want to free yourself from that misery, from that pain, from that suffering. Yeah? So again, you have to work hard to support yourself. Okay. Now this is why I want to come and break down and show you what you meant by supporting is actually you're supporting to find happiness and peace. You're supporting to get rid of suffering as much as you can. Why you build a house? Why you need a roof? Because it's too much suffering for you all to live without a roof, without enclosure. There's no security. There's no security from rain, cold wind, from heat, animals, creepy crawlies, snakes, no security from your enemies. So to get rid of that suffering, to avoid that all that distress, we have to build a house to get rid of that suffering. So whatever you do in your life, you analyze it why you have done it. At the end it comes to avoid suffering. Can you see that? These are very important things for you all to understand. Then you will understand how much we are trapped in this suffering. And we be trying to get rid of this suffering. This is why we do everything. But like the gentleman said, we still haven't managed to get rid of it. It's reoccurring, it's keep coming back. Because we really haven't looked into get rid of it for once and forever. What we being doing is temporarily doing things to change from one state to another, to trade in or to avoid it. Or we find a different route just to forget about it. We go to a movie to forget about our suffering. We go and drink to escape from the reality. when we try to, indulge in our five senses and try to find pleasure, following your desires, we do it not knowingly, actually, to gravitate away from suffering. Because when you try to please your senses, satisfy your senses, it brings a temporary pleasure. And it takes away your attention from this real suffering that's going on. And you forget about it. It masks the real suffering that's going on. Why do you blink? I want to show you going into that level. Why do you blink? You try to keep your eyes open without blinking. Then you will feel it's very difficult, it's very uncomfortable. Pain comes. So you have to wash your eyes. When the eye gets dried, you can't stand it. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering. So without even you knowing, you blink. But again, it hasn't really provided the real answer. So you have to keep blinking. Only until you keep blinking, it will go away. It will come back. You have to blink again. Why do you want to avoid accidents? This is the biggest misery and the suffering that all beings face. Why we want to avoid accidents? Because at the end, why we have done everything is we don't want to face death. Yeah? Why you want to feed yourselves? Yes, to get rid of the suffering that comes at that moment. But if you investigate it a bit deeply, you will see if you don't feed yourself for 7 days, a bit more than that, what happens? You die. When you get a sickness, you don't treat it, what happens? You will die. So everything actually we being doing is also to avoid death. Avoid death. But can we avoid it?
No.
Very clear, huh? Sooner or later we have to face. And do we take death as a good thing or a really bad negative thing? People even don't like to talk about death, right? Huh? People don't like even talking about death. When I was small, sometimes, jokingly, in Sri Lanka, the state of the affairs were not that good. You get out from your house until the evening. You don't know whether you'll be able to come back home because the bombs are going here and there.
Last time.
Remember, huh?
Last time.
Only these few years now the war has stopped and
More
it's
peaceful.
peaceful. Huh? People can just walk freely with no fear. But those days, when someone goes to work, really, you don't know whether you will come back or not. So I used to jokingly say, who knows whether I will come back or not. And the response from the adults is, don't say that. Because death is something being looked upon really as a bad thing. Because we don't like it, we don't want it, and we don't want to talk. So about this death, about suffering, it's the same thing. People don't like to look at it, don't like to talk about it. But the actual fact is, it's there. We can't avoid. Whether we like to talk about it or not, it's there. But if we can actually pay attention and focus on this and investigate this, the death, the suffering, then what does it do to us? It really prepares us. It can prepare us for this unpleasant death that you think it's unpleasant. It can prepare us to face something that we can't avoid. And if you contemplate on the suffering, it can help you to actually find the way out of suffering. Because you start to see it's everywhere. And then it will start to hit you to think, my goodness, how much are we trapped in this suffering? You will understand why Buddha started teaching this Dhamma from suffering. Yeah, you were here, I started teaching that Four Noble Truths starts from suffering. Yes, that's the Buddha's basic teaching, and that summarizes the whole teaching, Four Noble Truths. And it starts with suffering. So, if one can understand about this suffering, then it will compel them to do something about it. It's that person who will start to investigate, okay, what caused this suffering? Because at the moment, when we suffer, what do? When you suffer, you don't point the finger at yourself. This suffering is due to my whatever. You don't say that. You go there. That person makes me angry. That person makes me suffer. It's my neighbor, it's my boss, it's my work, it's my wife, it's my husband, these children. It's not you, but about everyone else out there you blame for your suffering. So, if you're going to keep on going like this until you die, will you ever be able to free yourselves from suffering? Will you be able to ever end your suffering? No way, because you're directing and focusing on a place where there's no suffering there. Suffering is not coming from out there. Remember, beginning I told you suffering is in here. It's not out there. It's in here. Lucky it's happening in here because you can do something about it and try to get rid of it, and you can get rid of it. Because it's happening in here. If the others were responsible for your suffering, you got no hope. Because you have to wait until everyone else becomes an arahat or enlightened person to not to inflict suffering on others. Everyone else, based on their greed, hatred and delusion, unknowingly, ignorantly inflict suffering on others. This is what we are doing to each other. In my pursuit of happiness and peace, I inflict suffering on others. Ignorantly, not knowingly. Don't realize this. And this is why actually we remind you about the 5 precepts. This is why you take the 5 precepts saying, I will refrain from hurting or harming or killing another being. This is why you have to remind it to yourselves. Because naturally what we do it. When we are angry, we are upset. That's what we do. So you remind yourselves, no matter how much I like something, if it's not given to me, if it belongs to someone else, I will not take it. I will not steal it. Yeah? So like this, you remind all these things to you because it's natural for us to cause suffering, inflict hurt, harm to another person in our struggle to survival. Because when we suffer, we didn't look inside for the real cause. We were always looking outside. When we look outside and blame outside, we do it with utter ignorance. In that, we have this self-centered thinking. Ignorance means we are self-centered, we are selfish. We think in terms of I, me and myself. That causes So much problems. All these problems in the world today is because of that selfishness. Self-centeredness brings all these problems. Because everyone is only interested about my happiness, my peace, my survival. Me and my family. It might extend to that level. To some people it's not even that level. Only me and myself. To some it will extend to me and my family, me and my friends. To some it might extend to me, my family, my village, to that level. To some people who have managed to broaden their mind, bring their selfishness a little bit lower, their concern might grow up to the country. My city, my country, my fellow beings. Very rarely someone would go beyond that. You really have to practice to get rid of the self, to be selfless, and to embrace the whole world, all beings. Yes? If we can do that, then our suffering will come down. The suffering comes directly as a result of our selfishness, self-centered thinking, this ignorance. Because we are only interested about ourselves, me and my family, in that it revolves around that. So we don't see, in our struggle to find happiness and peace in this region, then what happens? Unknowingly we have inflicted pain and hurt and suffering to other people. And this is why you take the 5 precepts to remind yourselves. So 5 precepts is about keeping a good relationship between you and the others, between you and the society that you live in. So if everyone keeps 5 precepts, if you follow that, then you can live without fear in that society. Can you see that? If everyone keeps the 5 precepts with understanding, then you all can minimize your suffering. Because at least it gives the freedom for you all to live freely without fear. But when we don't keep 5 precepts, what happens? We can't even live without fear. We have to live with fear. Because you don't know what will happen to you, how the other person will react. These days you don't know until you go home, whether the home is there or not, whether your valuables are going to be there or not. Recently I heard even in Buddhist Mahavihara, I think it was some committee member's sister, I think, and parents, they got robbed during the daytime. It's very common. Yes, in Sri Lanka now people can't wear a necklace, can't wear earrings. They just, drag. So why all this is happening? Because of our ignorance, our greed, hatred, delusion, and our selfishness, and self-centeredness make us to do these things. Because we only been thinking about my happiness and my peace. And we didn't care about how the other would feel. Everything was self-centered. When you do that, can you see suffering really increases? You really can't find the real peace and happiness. This is why I said the real answer to this, the secret, is being selfless. When you start to become selfless, when you start to broaden your mind, when you start to embrace others, when you start to have concern for others, cherish all living beings, then you can start to live with some peace and happiness. Yes? Can you all see that? Buddha teaches that how we should keep the 5 precepts is with this understanding. What understanding? That is, if I don't like something happen to me, then I must not do it to the other. I must I must not do it to another person. If I don't like to get hurt, get killed, I must not inflict that onto another person. If I don't like to lose my things, if I don't like others taking or stealing my things, I don't like it because it brings suffering to me. So therefore, I must refrain from doing it to another person. I must not inflict hurt, harm or suffering to another person. I don't like my wife or husband being taken away from me. Yeah, someone else is having an affair, or I don't like my children being abused. Yes, therefore I will not do it to another person. I will not bring that suffering to another person. I don't like people lying to me, slandering, speaking harshly to me, wasting my time talking things that's not really useful. I don't like. So then therefore I refrain from doing that to another person. I will not inflict suffering, hurt, harm to another person. And then the fifth one is also very important. If I can't think like this and act like this, because practicing 5 precepts is not easy. I told you at the beginning, naturally what happens from us because of our self-centeredness is we inflict hurt and suffering to others without knowing. So to prevent that, we really have to exercise our rational thinking. When our emotions drag us to do something wrong, we have to think rationally and tell ourselves, no, I will not do it because I don't like someone else doing it to me, so I will not do it to another person. So like that, you have to exercise your rational thinking and then stop that unwholesome act. Yes? So to be able to do that, you should be able to think rationally. You should be able to pay awareness and attention. But if you drink and get drunk, can you do that? You can't. Actually, today the scientists found out a very interesting thing. That is, they even brought a law. They said if someone is drunk and normally it's not the normal in language, normal language. If you say you are drunk, that means you are really drunk. But to the scientists, if you have 0.05 alcohol in your blood, that means it's only a little glass. You know, in Australia, in Western countries, if you have, that's a limit. If you have 0.05 alcohol in your blood, you can't drive. If you drive, you get caught, you get heavy penalties. Even your license can be cancelled. Even here, 0.05. So do you know how they came to that? They just can't bring a figure and say that. They had to prove in front of the law that when people have alcohol to that limit, or from that above, that limit, they can't think rationally. Their rational thinking is impaired. Their critical mind doesn't work. Their analytical mind is shut down. How they found, when they do the test, they found out, you know, our thinking uses our brain, the neuronal pathways. When you're drunk, these neuronal pathways are blocked. So even if you want to think, can you think? You can't. Physically, your brain doesn't support you to think. So can you imagine the state that you become, the vulnerability? You become like a baby. Huh? You know, we don't let people drive until they are 18. Why? That's the time the brain is mature enough to make decisions, be able to make judgments, not to hurt or harm oneself and the others. They can take responsibility. They can think now, rationally. What will bring harm? What will bring harm to oneself and to the other? And they have the ability to judge and avoid things. ability to do good things, thinking. But that is the time that the brain matures, where they can do that thinking, proper thinking. So until that, we don't give license, because it's so dangerous to put someone who can't really think properly behind a fast moving wheel, behind a vehicle, because that's dangerous to that person and to the others who are in the road, everywhere. So a drunken person is like a baby, a person with an immature mind. They might be grown up like 50s, 60s in their body, but at that point when they are drunk, their brain doesn't work. It doesn't support thinking. So the scientists managed to prove that when someone is drunk, they can't think. And it's very important and critical when you drive. You should be able to assess situations every moment. If someone crosses the road on the spot, you should be able to brake and save that person and yourself. Avoid damages, avoid dangers, avoid accidents. But a drunken person can't do that, because they can't think rationally. So 2500 years ago Buddha said this. Only very recently scientists found out what happens when you're drunk. Even when you're small, when I was small, that law wasn't there. Only very recent times that they brought that law, when the science improved. But 2500 years ago, Buddha advised this. He said, if you're going to get drunk, you will lose your critical thinking. You will become so vulnerable. So if you do this, easily you will break that other 4 precepts. Because you've got no ability to rationally think and act. You see what the drunken people do? Fall on the floor and sleep on the floor, even on the, just pits. They vomit, eat the vomit, talk nonsense, act like dogs. If they had the common sense, they will never behave like that, because they have lost their head. So Buddha says it's very important that you keep your awareness, the ability to think, ability to pay attention and think. So these 5 precepts are very important in order to help ourselves to feel or experience less suffering, and to help others to experience happiness and peace. Because the minute we break 5 precepts, that means someone is suffering. You are adding to someone else's misery. Everyone is suffering. Remember I told you, from the day they are born, throughout samsara, we are suffering. So when we break our 5 precepts, what we are doing, we are actually inflicting, we are giving them more things to suffer. We are adding to their misery. So as Buddhists, it's very important actually not to add to another's misery, because you don't like others adding misery into you. So Buddhism is actually based on thinking about others, we act. Understanding about others' suffering, others' happiness, we act accordingly. What we want, we give others. What we don't want, we don't give others to. Yes? That's basics. So, when it comes to the placing your attention or mindfulness in your daily life, it's not an easy thing to do. I started by saying, when we pay attention, it's not that we have to pay attention to outside, we have to pay attention to here, to know what's really going on here. Because it's this one who is suffering. If you want to free this one from suffering, you do need to look into here. And what I was trying to show you before is that when you are emotional, when you have these desires, passion, anger, ill will, hatred, jealousy, fears, all these emotions, there's so many other emotions. Any emotion you think, what it does to you, it burns you. It brings you so much misery, unhappiness and suffering. So, paying attention means you should be able to see into your own mind and recognize how is your mind, how is your mood, how do you feel, what are you thinking. Not just paying attention, okay, I'm cutting, I'm working, I'm driving. But I told you, you can do these things while you're boiling inside, while you're burning inside. Then what's the point? Being able to place this right attention actually helps you to be free from these emotions. That's the whole aim. That's the whole point of doing it, is for you all to, at least in that moment, to free yourselves from suffering, unnecessary suffering, and to find some happiness and peace. See, the minute you start to look into your emotions, if you can identify, oh, I'm angry, I'm really having something cooking and boiling in here, I have some fear going on. If you can see it, that's the first point to take care of it, to get rid of it. These emotions take place unconsciously. Do you ask, now I should get angry? I want to get angry? No. You even don't know you got angry. You don't know you got afraid. You didn't say, now I must get afraid. Now I must have desire for this. You didn't think. It happened to you. So you were so vulnerable. Yes? To this mental suffering, Buddha says these are all illnesses. Anger is an illness. It's a mental illness. And actually in Western countries it says straight away it's a mental illness. They prescribe anger management. Yes? But I think in Asian countries it's not much seen as a mental illness because it's very common. But with the Westerners, it's not that common. Actually, compared to the Asians, Westerners are calm, really. They don't easily get angry and all that. So for them, when they see these things, they really say it's a mental illness. It's not normal. So, to Buddha, even the subtlest thing, like a dislike, the anger, ill will, hatred, desires, passion, lust, fears, sadnesses, that now only the sadness is becoming depression and clinically depression, and they are recognizing it as a mental illness. But for Buddha, it was all the time. He said all these things are not normal, they are illnesses, mental illnesses. They make you to suffer. So we must take care of these things. We suffer more than the physical suffering, aches and pains. You suffer actually due to your mental illnesses, mental disorders. Not being able to control your emotions. That brings a lot of suffering. So to be able to free yourselves from that part at least, you should be able to pay attention to your moods, to your emotions. Then what happens, the minute you bring attention to that unconscious process that's going on without your knowledge, will stop. Now the minute you can bring your attention to say, now I'm angry, the anger will start to subside. And from that point you can take control of yourself over your bodily actions and also the verbal actions. The minute you recognize that you're angry, the minute you recognize you got some fear going on, you can take control of it. The minute you see you have some lust going on, you can take control of it. And then do the necessary to get rid of them. And then there is another important thing for you all to understand. So this is part of your exercise in the right attention. Not just paying attention in the moment, but to be able to pay attention to yourself, to see the relationship between what you do and how your mind is reacting to that. And see the state of the mood. When you see it, if there's some disturbance going on, then it allows you to fix it. Because now you do understand these emotional disturbances, these mood changes are suffering. Everyone agrees that? Yeah. And anyone here who like to suffer? No. So if you don't like to experience suffering, you must do something to get rid of these emotions. So we must start actively doing something. These emotional states, dealing with the mind, the problems in the mind, is not just happening things like in your body. Say your body will get old. By the time when it gets old, it will start to shut down, one system by one system. Problems will start to come. You are going to be going down the hill. Physical problems will come. Your eye will start to fade away, your seeing will start to fade away, your ears will start to die slowly like this. Your whole body will start to give you problems, but you got no much control over it, because it's a natural process. When you're going down the hill, getting old, vyadi. Vyadi means sicknesses. Some illnesses will come without your control. You will no hope. The only thing you can do, take some medication to manage it, balance it. And one day physical body also will die. But these mental illnesses, it's directly under your control. If you want to take control over them, it's not a natural process. Like the physical body going decay. Physical body undergoes decay naturally, which you got no control. But this mental process, the mental decay or the corruption, that is not really a natural process. It is something that happens to you because of your ignorance, and it can be brought under your control very easily if you know the techniques how to do this. So this is what the Noble Eightfold Path is about. Remember I talked to you about how Buddha taught you all how to get rid of suffering? Yes? Buddha's whole teaching is revolving around suffering and how to get rid of suffering, how to be free from it, how to find the real happiness and peace and nibbanic bliss. Yes? And what I try to show you now, more than the physical suffering, you suffer because of this untrained mental suffering. What's going unconsciously, that brings the highest suffering, biggest suffering. So when we practice, when we say we are cultivating ourselves, we are developing ourselves, we are practicing the Dhamma, what does that mean? If you are really practicing the proper Dhamma, what you are doing is you are helping yourselves to get rid of this unnecessary suffering. And more you practice Dhamma, more you should be able to feel happy and peaceful. Because the real Dhamma teaches and points you the way how to take control of this. Because this is where the suffering is taking place. I remember I told you it's not out there, not with the neighbor, not with the husband, not with the wife. Suffering is here. Your emotions are here. So to bring these emotions under control, the first step is called the Sila. I talked about 5 precepts. Keeping your morals and ethics with the understanding that you don't like to suffer, so therefore you will not inflict suffering on others. So what you're doing there is you're trying to not to express your emotion to outwardly. You can be boiling with anger, but you're not going to physically put it out there or verbally. You're going to restrain that emotion. So at least you're not steaming out and burning another person with your steam. Because there's another law you have to understand. What goes around will come around. What you do will come back to you, not in 1-to-1 fold, 100,000 fold. With over time, it gathers energy. You put one seed, one apple seed, do you just get one apple seed? You get countless amount of seeds, apples and seeds. This is how the law of karma phala works. You act, that will come back to you. What you do to another person, whether you are acting to bring happiness or suffering, whatever that is, the same thing will come back to you, but not in 1-to-1, in 100,000 folds. So the first thing is very important. If you are interested in bringing your suffering to a lower level and to get rid of it, you must first focus on others and help them, not to increase or not to add to their suffering. So first thing is you control your emotions, don't express them, you restrain. So that way you're not going to have any more extra suffering come on your way. Because if you let it out, the akusala karma means suffering. As a result of akusala karma, unwholesome acts and words and deeds, what you're going to experience is unhappiness and suffering. So therefore it's very important for you all to restrain. When the emotions are there, when this inner turmoil is going on, we don't let it out, we don't express it. So that's the first step. Then the next step is being able to pay attention, not just to in the moment what you're doing, but being able to watch your mind, what the state of your mood, knowing the emotion, and then working to get rid of that emotion. Because that itself is suffering now. At the moment the suffering has manifested and it's suffering. Yes? When you're emotional, there's a lot of unhappiness, a lot of disturbances, a lot of misery that's going on. Even the most innocent one, like you look when there is sadness or when there is some depression, it's very innocent, it looks very innocent, yeah, but it brings immense suffering. Yeah? So all these states of emotions, emotional states, bring suffering. There's no wholesome emotion. Every emotion brings a lot of suffering. So then the next step will be to get rid of these emotions. First, you try to stop them by being conscious of it. You tag it, what the emotion is. That means you are conscious of it. Now the unconscious process will start to stop. It's like before the circuit was connected, and if you didn't know you were angry, anger will get higher and higher and higher. But the minute you notice it, what's going on unconsciously, it's like the circuit is open now. You can't get any more angry. It will only start to subside. How does that happen? Do you know how this emotion started? I told you this wasn't just a natural process like the physical decay. This mental decay is not just happening. It's happening with causes and conditions. When the proper necessary causes and conditions are there, these emotional states arise. Do you know what's the cause and condition for these emotional states to arise? How does it get arise? How does it arise? Buddha says in the Dhammapada, are you familiar with the book Dhammapada? Yes? The Dhammapada, first saying is called, it goes like this: Mano pubbhangama dhamma, mano setta manomaya, manasache paduttena, vasativa karotiva, Tatonang dukamang medi chakkumavaha topada. What it says? Mind is the forerunner. Your thinking is the forerunner. Thinking proceeds. According to your thinking, if your thinking is unwholesome and you act, you speak and act accordingly, suffering will follow like the wheels of a cart that follows an ox. Do you know? You have seen, I think here you may not see this ox and the cart, but in India, in Sri Lanka, I'm sure you have seen some photos and TV. The TV, you know, there is this ox, and they have to pull this heavy cart, and they don't like it. It's suffering, but they got no choice because they are bound to it. So it's like that. A person with a corrupted mind, with unwholesome thought, will experience suffering like that ox. You know, in other words, Buddha is saying the person who get into this state is like they have a mind of a cow. He didn't say it directly, but indirectly we can imply. Who will want to do it happily? Only a cow drags that cart, no? If it had a brain, it won't do it. The animals who have little bit of brain more than them, they don't do it. They will fight against it and they will just quickly get rid of it. But because the cow, they say, you know, it doesn't have much brain. So they just keep pulling it. Even though it's so weighty, they pull it. I have seen in India, actually they pull like a truckload. Have you all seen? You've been to India? Next time when you go, you will, pay attention. There's these two cows or the oxes tightened to this cart, and this cart has a load of like a truckload. Because it's the cheapest way to transport things. Poor cows, they can't say no. They can't say I'm tired. They can't say I can't. They have to keep pulling it. So the person who keeps unwholesome thoughts, Buddha says, is like this. As a result of keeping these unwholesome thoughts, they will have to pull their suffering with no choice. And the second one goes, it's called the opposite. Buddha says, a person with pure thoughts, with wholesome thoughts, if they talk and act with pure thoughts, they will experience happiness as a result of that. And happiness will follow them like a shadow. It will not leave them. But like a shadow, that happiness will follow that person. Yeah? So here what Buddha is trying to point out is to a very important thing. The way you are going to feel, whether you are going to be emotional and suffer, experience suffering, or whether you are not going to have emotions and find happiness and peace, is due to your thinking. This is why Buddha says mind proceeds. The thinking proceeds. So it's according to your wholesome thinking or unwholesome thinking, you're going to feel happy or unhappy. You're going to find happiness or suffering. So this is where you can take control of. This is where how you can take charge of. This is the point. So when you have emotions, try to work backwards in the reverse direction. You will see there has been some unwholesome thoughts. That's why this emotion came to be. The cause and condition for an emotion was a thought. specifically an unwholesome thought. In the absence of unwholesome thought, you find happiness and peace, especially when you keep wholesome thoughts. Very important to understand this point. Do you all understand that? Can you believe it's according to your thinking the emotion comes? Not yet convinced, huh? Okay, let me give you an example. Huh? We do it practically. Now, let's think of a sour mango or a lime. What happens to you? Huh?
Salvation.
You feel the saliva coming to your mouth. You only had that thought for a fraction of a second. It's like simultaneously, instantly, you had a reaction in your body. Right? This is how it takes place. It's your thought. What happens? When your five senses, your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, physical body sense, they bring the data from outside by seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, bring the data from outside, and you start to interpret them. You start to form thinking about what you see, about what you hear. You start to form thoughts, ideas. You start to interpret things. According to that interpretation, according to your thought, now at this stage the thinking process uses your brain, the neuronal cells, neurons, so using the cerebral cortex in the brain. But after that thinking, it proceeds to a developed state. That is, this thinking, those thoughts will send some messages to some glands in your brain. And when you send these messages to some glands in your brain, this gland starts to secrete hormones to bloodstream, mostly. Most of the time, this gland secretes hormones to bloodstream. In the example that I try to exercise, it secreted hormones and it secreted saliva into your mouth. That's why you could feel it. If it got secreted to the bloodstream, you wouldn't have felt it. So, let's go to an example to elaborate and make you understand this. Say if someone is standing here and making a noise. You know, our ear is comprised of an eardrum and some bones there. Eardrum is only able to vibrate. So when the sound comes, the frequencies, the movement in the air, it will start to vibrate our eardrum. And then according to that vibration, the tympani and all the other bones in the ear will start to vibrate. And that vibration gets carried through a nerve to the brain. Through the auditory nerve to the brain. Now the brain starts to think and analyze and interpret this situation. If you're being taught to interpret this frequency, you start to interpret it. Okay, now let's say you interpret this as, he's scolding me. He's actually talking about myself and he's scolding me for nothing. With that interpretation, with that thought, what takes place? What is the next step?
Anger.
That form of thought will send the message to a gland called amygdala in the brain. And amygdala dispatches the messages to adrenaline glands. And straight away, adrenaline gets secreted to blood. And anger is a whole body reaction. It's not just happening in the mind. It's not just involving the brain now. Because the hormone gets secreted to the blood and the chemical will now make you act. Your body will become warm. Depending on the level of the anger, you start to feel hot. The steam will come out. Huh? Your hair will stand on end. Your muscles will start to tighten and sometimes even to shiver. Your throat will start to dry out. So there will be lot of physical changes going on, discomfort, lot of tension. So anger is not just a thought, that emotion, and it came without your invitation, without your knowledge also. Remember? You only did this interpretation that this person is scolding me. The rest happened to you. Funny, huh? We are so vulnerable. Can you see the power of thought? Huh? So when the anger starts, you got no control. You act with that chemicals in your body makes you to do certain things. And you have people in the jail where they have killed some people. And you ask them, why did you do it? They will say, I really don't know what happened. I don't know how I killed my child. I don't know how I killed my parent. At that moment, I wasn't really clear. Remember, it's also like the drunken person. When you are angry, when you are emotional, again it blocks your rational thinking pathway. This is why our ancestors, there is a saying, they say, don't make important decisions when you are angry or when you are emotional.
Yes.
Why? Our rational thinking is impaired. We can't think straight. Only now the scientists are finding that when we are emotional, again rational thinking pathway gets blocked. Okay, so now you thought it in one way. This person is scolding me and you got angry. Now say you hear the same sound. You think, you start to interpret it in this way. This man, I heard it last week in the market also. Shouting and screaming at someone, mad man. You poor thing. If you interpret it that way, what happens to you? Do you get angry? No. You feel pity, you feel, oh poor boy. You feel sorry for them, for their condition. No? If you really see it as their problem, you go to a mental hospital, you see this. Do you think the doctors get angry? No. You feel sorry for them. Only another mad person will get angry with a mad person. Normally we don't get angry. Now, if you interpret this noise, there is a noise coming from this person. If you interpret that as, he's saying something in German. I don't understand now. Then how is your state of mind? How is your emotion going to be? Neutral. You will not get aroused, you will not get angry. It's just you don't know. But the minute you are going to interpret as, he's talking in a language I don't know, maybe Germany, but I think he's talking about me. I think he's talking about me. Some nasty thing about me. What will happen? Again you will get angry. No? And if you think, what is this person doing? He's making a joke. If you interpret it as a joke, what will happen? You will laugh. Now can you see it was your thinking that led to these different emotions? This is what I wanted to show. Can you see that? Now are you convinced that it's your thinking that brings the emotion? Very clear, Is it clear? If not, then I'll go deeper to show you really. But this should be clear enough, yeah? So, this is where you got the control over. When you live in this world, in this environment, the way you are going to interpret things, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, bodily touch, that's how you're going to feel. So it's your thinking that's responsible for you to feel happy or sad, for you to live happily and peacefully or to suffer. Your thinking is responsible. So Buddha shows there's two ways to think. One is an unwholesome way, one is a wholesome way. What are the unwholesome thoughts? There's three main categories Buddha shows. One is called kama chanda, kama vitakka. Means thinking in the pleasing the senses, going after the sensual pleasures or thinking in that way. The other one is vyapada vitakka, thinking with ill will or anger. Thoughts stemming with ill will, anger. Hinsa vitakka, thoughts with cruelty, based on violence, based on wanting to hurt or harm someone, or rejoicing in others' misery, finding happiness in others' misery. So this type of three types of unwholesome thinking will lead you to experience suffering, because it will lead to emotions. So the opposite of those thoughts are the wholesome thoughts. Instead of thinking pleasing your five senses, if you start to renounce them, learn to let go, drop it, seeing the danger in them, because the whole problem actually starts there. It's your desire that starts all this problem. But it will take me another not few hours, but few minutes if I have to go and explain that. But I think due to this time running out, I will leave it there. If you really contemplate, you will see it's your desire to please your five senses starts all the problem in the whole world. You can see it, huh? Very good. Okay. Because it's self-centered, all it's interested is pleasing the five senses, just to avoid that suffering that keep coming to you all the time. So you like to feel pleasures, to get rid of or to forget about what's really going on. So the minute you have the thoughts about pleasing your senses, if you can renounce it, it's called nekkhamma vitakka. That's a wholesome thought. You're avoiding an unnecessary problem. And then the other one is called avyapada vitakka. That means turning around the ill will, thoughts with ill will and anger, turning it around to metta, with unconditional loving kindness. So you form thoughts with no ill will, with no anger, but with understanding and with care and concern and thinking about others' welfare, others' benefit. May all beings be well and happy. And you think in that way. And the other thought is called avihimsa vitakka, means non-cruelty, means thinking in terms of compassion, based on non-violence. So these are the three wholesome thoughts. And these three wholesome thoughts will not lead to emotions, that means will not lead you to suffer. It's these three thoughts actually help you all to experience real happiness and peace of mind. And this is actually the second step in your Noble Eightfold Path. I told you Noble Eightfold Path is about how to get rid of suffering. First one is called Samadhi, is about the understanding of suffering and Four Noble Truths. That's Samadhi. Samadhi means the right understanding, harmonious perspective. It is about the understanding of Four Noble Truths. So when you understand that, you understand how suffering come to be. So the next step is very essential. You take steps to not to have suffering. So the second step is reforming, reprogramming your brain, your thinking, because it's a wrong thinking that brought you this mass of suffering. So you start doing that. So it's a second step. Third step is called Samma Vacha. So the second step is called actually Samma Sankappa, the harmonious thinking. Or it's normally translated as right thinking. Here it's translated as harmonious orientation. Because before, naturally you kept thinking in the unwholesome way, day to night. You harbor those thoughts, develop those thoughts, because you didn't know it was leading you to suffering, but you thought it was leading you to happiness. This is why you were doing it. If you all knew something is going to bring suffering, you will not do it. Yes? Yes. You didn't know that. So you were actually going in one direction looking for happiness, which will never give you happiness. So harmonious orientation is about you orientating into the right direction to find the right real happiness. Where the real happiness is. Real happiness is not coming from pleasing your five senses, but coming from purifying your mind from unwholesome thoughts and helping to think in the wholesome way. So it's pretty much a reprogramming in your brain. So when you start to reprogram your brain, you have heard this other thing, rubbish in, rubbish out. If you have rubbish, what comes out from here and from your words and action? Rubbish. This is why you all have to keep an eye on your 5 precepts. Yeah, because there's a corrupted program running here. When the unwholesome thoughts are there, unwholesome words, deeds will come. But when you start reprogramming, the wholesome thoughts are going to run the program. So the words that will come will be harmonious. It's called the right speech. Harmonious speech results from this second step. You reprogram in your brain, your thinking. So the third step is called right speech. It will naturally happen because you're putting the right program here. So when good things are there, good things will come out. The fourth step is called Samma Kammanta. That means right action, harmonious action. So your activities, your bodily activities will be harmonious. And the fifth one is called Samma Ajiva. Normally it's translated as right livelihood, but the real way to say it is actually the harmonious lifestyle. It's not just the job that you do. Job, the Pali word is jivika. Ajiva means the way you live. Lifestyle. So now the program running here is a pure one. So the way you're going to live also very pure and harmonious. No conflicts with oneself and the others. You not only think about yourself selfishly, but now you think about the others, and even for your living, you're going to be very careful. How you find your living will not hurt or bring any hurt, damage, any violence. You will not employ. You will find your way to living and how to survive in a very peaceful and harmonious way, based on non-violence. So when you start this path from right understanding, Samadhi is called right understanding, first step. Then you, with that understanding, you start to reorientate yourself, going towards the right way to find the real happiness and peace. So you start reprogramming your brain. As a result of you reprogramming your brain, 3 things will align. Your words, your action, the way you live will be samma, will be harmonious. No problem to anyone. Now the 6th step comes. After you do this, you can't be satisfied with that because there's more things to do still. Still you get emotions because you're still programming. So the 6th step is like you going up the hill, putting to the first gear. In the 6th step, 6th step is called the Samma Vayama. Is normally translated as right effort. Or it's the harmonious exercise. There's 4 exercises you have to do. Effort means effort, but what do you do with effort? Vayama really means it's an exercise. You do have to put effort to do exercise. Exercise don't just happen. When you do exercise, what happens? Why we do exercise? To strengthen. If you want to strengthen your muscles, you do exercises for your muscles. And your muscles get strengthened. So here you do the exercise to strengthen your mind. There's 4 steps. Normally it's translated as not allowing the unarisen, unwholesome thought to arise, getting rid of the arisen, unwholesome thought, arising the unarisen, wholesome thought, and maintaining the arisen, wholesome thought. So here you are actively doing some exercise, really purifying the mind. And then when you are doing that, the third step in that, what I actually told you, that unwholesome, arisen, unarisen, that part, that translation is the surface level translation, commonly translated like that. But Buddha was using the word called samvara, prahana, bhavana, anulakkana, guarding the senses, eliminating the memory images or thoughts, and then bhavana means meditation, and the fourth one is maintaining it. So in the third step, bhavana, meditation, means it starts with samma sati. Sati, the right attention. Remember, this is what our whole topic was. Remember I told you it's the 6th step, and you just can't do it without knowing from the first step, from the beginning. So here we come to now to the 7th step, the right attention, or normally translated as samma sati, as right mindfulness, harmonious attention. So this attention starts from samma sati, starts from how? How do you develop your attention, your mindfulness? How? What is the technique that Buddha gave? It's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Have you all heard? Satara Satipatthana. The ability to place your attention in 4 places. Remember I told you it's not our duty to place attention out there. This is what we've been doing, so we suffer. The whole point is now to bring your attention to inside. Remember? So Buddha says inside, he breaks it into 4. It's called Kayanupassana, contemplating on the body, placing your attention on the body. Vedananupassana means contemplating or placing your attention on the feelings, how you feel. Third one is Chittanupassana, contemplating or placing your attention on your mood to see whether there's any emotions or not, or how. 5th one is called Dhammanupassana, contemplating or placing your attention in the mind to see what's going on in the mind. Because can you see now there is this chain reaction that started? Remember I told you it's a thought that give rise to the mood change, emotion. And when it's an emotion, remember I told you it's not just happening in the brain, but it's a whole disturbance in your whole body. So many changes take place in your body. Yes? So Buddha is teaching us to see into this reaction. How your thought started this whole reaction. But we can't straight away see the thought, so you start with your body, because that's where we are. You focus on your body, you start to see how your body feels. The tensions, or it's relaxed. And then you work one step backwards, the feeling. How do you feel it? Was that feeling pleasant or unpleasant? Or how? Then you work one step backward. How is my mood now? The state of the mood, the emotions. Can I see any emotions? Is there any emotions? Is there any ripples? You start to see that. Then you work one step backward. Now you know if there's any ripples, you know it didn't come out without a cause. It came with my thinking, with my interpretation. You work backward, you see your own thought that gave rise to this whole reaction. So this is how you place your attention in Samma Vayama. When we say Bhavana, it's developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. It's also called practicing the Satara Satipatthana. or four foundation of mindfulness. And this four foundation of mindfulness, practicing that is the seventh step, Samma Sati. Right attention or right mindfulness, normally translated as. So that's the seventh step on your Noble Eightfold path. So when you practice the seventh step, it also, have you heard of 7 factors of enlightenment? It's the 7 factors of enlightenment that brings one to a fully enlightened state. Those are the factors that brings the enlightenment. That's why they are called 7 factors of enlightenment. If you are into meditation, you may have learned. People try to practice this. This is the part they call vipassana. Buddha used the word vipassana to practice 4 foundations of mindfulness, and that's the starting point of developing 7 factors of enlightenment. The first factor is called sati, placing attention. How? These 4 foundations of mindfulness, just before I explained it to you. The second step in the 7 factors of enlightenment is called Dhamma Vichaya. Focusing on this experience, seeing it over and over and over. Then the understanding will start to come how this machine called I, me, myself is working. And then when you do this, virya comes. Virya means energy. The mind will feel so happy and peaceful because it's free from emotions now. It's full of the wholesome thoughts. So it feels happy and peaceful because you're no longer harboring or developing suffering. You're kind of releasing yourself from suffering step by step when you're walking on this path. So now the mind gathered energy and it feels happy. Preeti. 4th factor is called Preeti in these 7 factors of enlightenment because the mind starts to feel so happy. And the 5th factor is called Passanti. Passanti means comfort, sukha. Your body starts to feel very relaxed and comfortable because you're free from emotions, no chemicals in your blood. Your muscles are all loosened up, no tensions, all loosened up. You feel so comfortable, so light, like a feather. That's Passanti. Then the next step is called Samadhi. Samadhi is normally translated as concentration, but the real meaning is like tranquility of mind, the state of the peace. It's a very peaceful state and it's a tranquility of your mind. Buddha is talking here. You got rid of all your emotions, all your stress. So what's left is peace, tranquility of mind. So that's your 7th step, 6th step in the 7 factors of enlightenment. And now it has overlapped with the 8th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is Samma Samadhi, normally translated as right concentration. And it's actually not concentration. You can see here the mind is not concentrated. My mind is so pure. It's so tranquil and peaceful. Yeah? So the 7th factor of enlightenment, the final one, is called Upekkha. Means the Samadhi, the definition of Samadhi, Buddha breaks into 4. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Have you heard of them? Jhana? So Upekkha means another word to 4th jhana. So your tranquility of mind is gone deeper level, to the deepest level. So that's when the 7 factors of enlightenment become perfect. And you are enlightened. So this is why I said at the beginning, Buddha has mentioned in the Satipatthana Sutta, where he teaches about 4 mindfulness, 4 foundations of mindfulness, that Sutta, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Buddha mentions someone who practices this method, this vipassana, can only have 2 results. Either you become an anagami, one non-returner, or you become an arahat, a fully enlightened being. This is a vipassana. So people took this vipassana, they saw this is the gateway to enlightenment. Right. So they started jumping and practicing on 4 foundations of mindfulness. We are practicing vipassana, we are practicing this satipatthana, because that's a gateway. But do you find enlightened people today? Not really. You look into these meditation circles, you will see how they are greed, hatred, delusion at work. Yeah? Why? Because they didn't start this with first understanding, with the right understanding. This noble eightfold path started with the first step, with right understanding. With the understanding of the Dhamma, with the suffering. And Buddha says, the person who understands about suffering, then only the path will manifest to him, or he will look forward for the path to exit from suffering. If you don't understand the suffering, if you don't penetrate into suffering, if you don't penetrate into 4 noble truths, no way out, no Nibbana. Nibbana is only for the person who understands suffering. Because when you really understand it, then only you will look out for a way out, the exit. It's like this. You know, you're listening to me now, very comfortably, yeah? I know it's getting late, so you're a bit wanting to go home, but you're still listening to me. But if you see this building is on fire, if the fire alarm goes, if the smoke comes in, if it gets heated, will you stay and listen like this? No. What do?
Run.
You run and look for the exits. You run and look for the exits to get out from this place, because you don't want to suffer. You're looking for a way out of suffering. But that will only happen. You will only run if you see what's going on here. If you don't see the fire that's going on, you will just stay comfortably, happily, and eat and dance and do all kinds of things. Yeah? So Buddha says the person really who understands the suffering is like their head is on fire now. Because they understand there's no escape. You're so trapped in it. So the person whose head on fire, what do? What do you think? They will look for a way out of it to extinguish it. No? So when you see suffering, when you start from there, from the right understanding, Samadhi, right view means that you understanding not just that bit, but the 4 noble truths. You start with the proper understanding, with the aim now, you want to end the suffering. Right? You don't just go and meditate, oh, samatha, oh, vipassana. No, you're doing it with understanding now, I want to get rid of the suffering. So you start from first step, second step is your reprogramming your brain. Because you understood it was your unwholesome thoughts that brought the suffering. That's the beginning. You start from there, you follow the steps, you come to the 6th step. It's like putting onto the 1st gear. Purifying your mind now. That's where you get rid of your 5 hindrances. And up to this point is called the samatha bhavana or samatha meditation, or the calming the mind. The meditations that help to get rid of all the emotions, the 5 hindrances up to the 6th point in sammavaya, or the right effort or harmonious exercise. In that point there are 4 parts I told you in that exercise. When you do the first 2 exercises, getting rid of the arisen unwholesome thought and not allowing the unarisen unwholesome thought to arise, your mind becomes pure. No unwholesome thoughts. All your 5 hindrances are gone. So that means no emotions. Yeah? No unwholesome thought means no emotions. Remember I told you emotions are based on these unwholesome thoughts. So Up to this point, it's called the samatha meditation, calming the mind. After those 2 points, the third one starts bhavana or meditation with 4 foundations of mindfulness, or with samma sati, with harmonious attention, developing the 7 factors of enlightenment. That part is called vipassana. And you can see now clearly, looking at this, understanding the Noble Eightfold Path, you cannot do vipassana just like that. There is a lot of homework, groundwork to do. After you've done the groundwork, only then you can start vipassana, really, in Buddha standards. This is why I said at the beginning, people have different standards. Even just for sitting in the cushion, they can say, I'm meditating. But you can be going, ra, 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 this one said this, that one said, and you're developing your anger. No? Real meditation is purifying your mind. Being able to see these things, being able to understand the connections, being able to get rid of the unwholesome thoughts and purify your mind. That's meditation. Do you know about 5 hindrances? Kamachanda, Vyapada, Tina Middu, Dachukukucha, Vichikicca. Kamachanda is desire for sensual pleasures. Vyapada is ill will, hatred. Tina Midda is like the sadness, contraction of the mind. They say normally sleepiness. Uddachakukka is like your restlessness, worries, anxiety. And Vichikicca is also the tension in your mind. So when you get rid of those 5 hindrances, no emotions, mind is pure, and then you start to develop the 7 factors of enlightenment, your peacefulness, your tranquility of mind will start to get deep and deep and deep. You end up in 1st jhana, 2nd jhana, 3rd jhana, 4th jhana, and at the end you are fully enlightened. Is it clear? And this path is divided into 3. Sila, Samadhi, Prajna. You're keeping your precepts. Then Samadhi means the tranquility of mind, and Prajna means the wisdom. That's how it's being divided. Okay, so now I hope with the time, probably I would like to stop here, and I hope you understood what is right attention or what is right mindfulness, how to practice it. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. Because it was a short and sweet, given in a summary form within 1 or 2 hours. So it's very condensed, maybe very heavy. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. And this may be the first time you come across this, so but looking at some of your faces, I can see everything went in. But some of the faces, I still can see some confusion. That's why I put this in the chart, so people can understand. You look into the suttas, you look into what Buddha said, and you will see the connections. How it all connected together, no conflicts. So Buddha says, when someone teaches you Dhamma, how to measure it's Dhamma or Adhamma, how to measure whether it's the real words of the Buddha or not, is by being able to fit what you heard, that whatever the teaching, you should be able to fit it in to the beginning of the Buddha's Dhamma, what Buddha taught, to the middle and to the end. What is the beginning? You should be able to fit into the 4 noble truths with no conflict. The middle is the dependent origination. You should be able to fit this into the dependent origination. What is the end? Noble Eightfold Path. You should be able to fit this into the Noble Eightfold Path. So whatever you heard, if you can fit that into Buddha's Dhamma, to his teachings, with no problems, no conflicts, then that's the Dhamma. This is the measure. So there are many people, teachers, many things, many meditation methods, many things. So we really now don't know what's right, what's wrong. So your safeguard is using your rational thinking mind, exercising your intelligence, and going back to Buddha's teachings, to the original suttas, and trying to fit in these things into them. and see whether it will fit. Huh? So I try to fit whatever that I know according to the sutras. This is how I put this chart in so people can easily understand. And that chain reaction is here. The chain reaction that I spoke about, how you bring the data in through your five senses.
Which two?
Yeah, in the environment with all this stimulation taking place, and we get stimulated, then the thinking process starts. Vijnana is actually this perception process. Eye perception, ear perception, all this perception are called vijnana. And thinking process is, Buddha used the word called mano. Mano pubbhangama dhamma. Manositta manomaya. And after thinking, it proceeds to the emotional level, and that part Buddha called chitta. And this is the chain reaction here. So hope you can understand that easily. And this is where the five aggregates come, and you can see it easily. And the first diagram is how your senses bring the data in that process. And I don't think I will have time to go through that, but hopefully when you look at it, you should be able to understand how your senses work. Okay, so do you have any questions? When you go home, should pay attention before you forget today, tomorrow. Go through this over and over and try to fit it in with the sutras. Then your understanding, you will get deep understanding. So any questions? Brother, you have any questions? Okay, we can, but do you think they will stay?
No, just you explain the technique.
Okay, I will explain. Okay. Okay, now. Yes?
Start with the slowing down the mind, like the fan, the example to start. No time for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Make it
Now,
simple.
This is the thing. There's many types of meditations, right? But now, do you understand the purpose of life? Our human quest is to find happiness and peace, to get rid of suffering in all costs. We are trying to get rid of our suffering, yeah? So really, Buddha's teaching is about how to get rid of suffering and how to find the real happiness and peace. So the real meditation is, it has to be something that helps us to get rid of suffering and to help us to find this happiness and peace. That's beyond the five sensual realm. So now I told you, it's the unwholesome thinking that brings suffering. That's the Buddha's teaching. And I showed it to you, how it actually can affect and what manifests according to your thoughts, yes? So that's where you all have to pay attention and focus. So our first basic meditation should be trying to get rid of unwholesome thoughts and trying to cultivate wholesome thoughts. So you should be able to pay attention to yourselves when you are doing things in the present moment to see how you're feeling. You check, there is an emotion, straight away come back and check on your thought. There's an unwholesome thought. So quickly you get rid of it and throw it away. And you turn it the opposite way. If it's something burning desire, you learn to let go. There's no ending to these desires. I have been following these things, try to fulfill these things throughout my life. Still I get the same kind of desire. Like that you rationally argue and let go. And if the thought that you have is about some dislikeness or ill will, some anger, some hatred, what you do? Quickly get rid of it and replace it with loving kindness. May he or she be well, and happy. They are so angry, they are shouting at me, they are doing this, doing that, because they are venting out their steam. They are so emotional, they are suffering so much. So they are trying to actually get rid of their suffering by, it's actually, this is what happens. When you have an emotion, remember I told you there's a lot of hormones involved. When you have an emotion, what these hormones do to you is one thing, is tense the muscles. So you feel very uncomfortable. So one thing you unconsciously try to do is to get rid of this tension. And how we get rid of this tension, we put it to action. Either you go and hit or fight, or you lash out with the speech. Or if you are sad, you cry. If you are afraid, you scream. And in that, your tension gets released. In that physical action. And I'm sure you all have experience when you have some kind of a sadness going, if you cry, you feel very light. You are so angry, you scream or you hit and do everything, and then after that you feel so happy. Why? That tension got released. It's like that, stretched rubber band was released and it comes to its normal position. But this is the wrong way to release the tension. We have to find a civilized way to release the tension, that is by exercise. You do physical exercise to release the tension, or you walk. Go for a good walk or do some exercises. Sit down calmly for a while to all these tensions to be released. More your body gets comfortable, you will not get agitated easily. The people whose bodies are calm and with less tension, they don't get angry easily, they don't get emotional easily. Notice that. It's one of the things what makes us to be so emotional and it quickly, pushes us to get angry and this and that, is the tension in your body. So if you can keep your body in a very relaxed manner, you're safeguarding yourself. So what you should do is learn not to express your emotion in action. Remember 5 precepts. Not expressing the emotions in action. But we are not suppressing also. You know the root cause of this emotion, how it started with the thought. The next thing you do, get rid of that thought. So you're not suppressing your emotions, you're getting rid of the cause of that problem. So then the problem is over. So the whole problem was the unwholesome thought. So learn to detect this unwholesome thought and get rid of it. One of the best way to protect your mind is to always keep a wholesome thought. If you're coming from the Mahayana background, Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha. Oh Buddhaya, oh Buddho, 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 oh Namo Buddho, oh Itibiso, oh Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Oh, may all beings be well and happy. Something that is wholesome, that doesn't arouse any emotion. You keep repeating it, you keep chanting it over and over and over like a tape.
But this part of the meditation.
This is the beginner's meditation. So this will start to purify your mind.
Concentration.
No, concentration means trying to focus on one thing.
This one no.
No. Buddha never taught concentration. The word Samadhi is translated to concentration. Westerners went to Sri Lanka, like Rice Davids. They went to Sri Lanka to learn Buddhism. They learned Pali, they learned Buddhism, and they wanted to convert now it into English. They wanted to translate it to English to share with others. But they didn't have meditation experience. They didn't know what Buddha was talking from their experience. So they came from a Christian background. They tried to translate this into English, made terrible mistakes. So they thought, because in jhanas, when you get into these peaceful, tranquil states of mind, there are characteristics in your mind. Like I told you, there is happiness, there is discomfort, and there is something called ekagata. Piti, sukha, ekagata. Piti means a happiness, sukha means a comfort in your body. Remember, when you're upset, your body is tense. When you're released from emotions, you're very comfortable. You even don't feel your body elevate. You're that comfortable. So sukha means that bodily comfort. And there is another characteristic of the mind is called ekagata. Ekagata, they translated as one-pointedness. So what they do now is they try to bring the mind to one-pointedness. Because that's what's in the fourth jhana. They didn't realize your mind is scattered all over the place. You have a lot of tension between your emotion and your rational thinking. Remember, there's two parts, your thinking and emotion. Do you see that there is a big tension between them? When you have an emotion, always emotion will win. It will bring reasons and will say, you go to a bank, there are pens. It's okay, I take this pen. It's okay, there is plenty of pens for the bank. You know, in every religion, they talk about a good dog and a bad dog. They say a black wolf and a white wolf. They say there is this good voice and the bad voice. Yes? It's about this tension. We know, our mind, the thinking part, rational part, knows right and wrong, good and bad. But the emotion, if the emotion has arisen, it don't care. All it is interested is manifesting that emotion, getting that desire done. Whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, it doesn't care. It's like a child. You know, children, when they want something, they don't care. So you do have that child in you. And like the child, how the child is guided is by a parent, with someone who can think. So we do have that too, the rational thinking part. But the problem is, rational thinking part will not have control if the emotion is arisen. Emotion always wins. Why you all have to keep remembering 5 precepts is, you know right and wrong, good and bad very well. You know it's wrong to break 5 precepts. But what do you do? Without even knowing, gone. Why? The emotion is that strong. When the chemicals come to your bloodstream, you got no control. It's the chemicals that make us act in a certain way. Yes, it's all chemicals that's working really. So, it's very important for you all to know this. So, in that jhana state, there is these 3 parts, 3 characteristics. The first jhana has the ability to think, and then this characteristic about priti, the happiness, the sukha, about the comfort of the body, and something called ekagata. Ekagata means directed into one point. Eka means one, agra means one end. Now before you come to this purified state, you have 2 ends. One end is going, the emotion is pulling you in one direction, and your rational thinking is pulling in you one direction. So always there is this tension. When you have purified your mind, there's no longer emotions are there. So no longer there is a pull to the opposite direction. It's all lined into one direction with your rational thinking. This is why at the end of the Noble Eightfold Path, what gets perfected is your wisdom. It's your rational thinking, your intelligence gets what? Improved, perfected. Wisdom is perfection of your rational thinking. It's a wisdom that helps us to see things as they are, or to understand how things come to be. That releases you. After seeing the anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, dukkha and non-self, characteristics of this existence. What understands it? Your wisdom. But remember, I told you, when you have emotions, you can't think rationally. Even the ability that you have, little ability that you can think rationally, gets blunted. when you have emotions, because it works in the other way. It pulls you, it blunts you, it stops. So it's very important we know all these things, how our brain works. Buddha was the best brain scientist, the best doctor, the mind therapist, or the, what do you call them? Which therapist are they called? Psychotherapist. Because he knew. Only now actually the psychologists know how to fix a person with so much emotional problems. Because now they knows that the emotions are starting with thoughts. So now they help these patients with these emotional problems to guide their thoughts in the proper way. It's called positive thinking. What is positive thinking? Is to think in the wholesome way, to develop wholesome thoughts. What is stress reduction? Stress means this tension in the body and your mind. Getting rid of stress means they are utilizing these Buddhist teachings now. Relaxing your body, do exercises, positive thinking, wholesome thoughts. We know it 2,500 years ago. It didn't happen just now. Only now the psychologists are realizing these things. But not by studying Buddhism, some have, but some studying the brain, how it works. They start to understand this is what's going on. So your real meditation should be to purify your mind. Because this ekagrata or one-pointedness, you cannot get it by forcefully. It's something that happens as a result of you purifying your mind. Yes? We've been doing a big mistake by trying to concentrate and keep the mind in one point. Because this Samadhi word got translated into concentration. Big mistake. It leads us to somewhere else. It gives a different idea. Concentrate. Buddha never taught to focus on one point or to concentrate. What he taught is to purify the mind from unwholesome thoughts and develop the wholesome thought. Then the problem is fixed. Your mind is then one-directed, one-pointed. So your meditation should be at the beginning to keep a pure thought all the time. While you're sitting, while you're walking, while you're standing, while you're lying down, when you're not sleeping, you should guard your mind from the unwholesome thoughts and develop wholesome thoughts. That should be your meditation. So whichever the way you want to do it, there is many methods. Thinking about the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, contemplating on the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, it's called the Buddha Anusati, Dhamma Anusati, Sangha Anusati. Then contemplating on metta, unconditional loving kindness, that's called metta bhavana. And then you can contemplate on the body, asubha bhavana, the impurities on the body. Or you can contemplate on the death contemplation. Because these things will not arise any emotions. Or on compassion. Many methods. As long as whatever you do help you to stay calm and it's a wholesome thought, you are in the right track. That's the beginning. And you must do that and come to a stage where there's no emotions, then only you can go to this vipassana part. And when you do that, it's irreversible. Because it's like awakening. You're starting to see how this machine works. You start to see for yourself and realize to yourself how your thought is creating all this magic. Yeah? And when you realize that you will never go back to sleep, you will never let anything happen unconsciously. Remember I told you all your emotions happens unconsciously? So this practicing the fourfold base mindfulness, 4 foundations of mindfulness, brings you from that unconscious state to a conscious state. Placing attention on those 4 places and watching this chain reaction means you're making it conscious all the time. So you start to wake up And this process is irreversible. This is why Buddha says there can be only two results, either anagami or arahant, non-returner or a fully enlightened being. Because you can't go back to sleep after you start to wake up. So when you really get enlightened, in other words, it's called awakening. You awake from this unconscious state, from your deep sleep, not knowing what's going on you. Yeah? Until we learn this Dhamma, we really don't know what's going in us. Huh? The Dhamma is pointing to know you. Remember, this is how I started. Awakening means knowing yourself. Then you start to really understand there's no self. You start with the self because that's what you think. I, me, myself. But when you practice, you come to say this is only activities that keep on going with no driver. So only the causes and conditions bring certain causes and conditions. So it continues. But with no driver, no self. So you realize non-self. So your practice should be not to get hold on to something called samatha or vipassana. Don't get into these arguments because they are there because people didn't understand what Buddha taught. With these translations and this and that, we've been going in the different tangent. This is why there's no enlightened people. So get into the right track. Right track is a noble eightfold path. From the first teaching of the Buddha, you take the suttas, everywhere he emphasizes the path to Nibbana, path to get rid of rasa suffering, noble eightfold path. He didn't just say meditation. They had never said just meditation. Meditation is only one part in this. This is an awakening process, and in the process, meditation is one part. There's many other things you have to do. Yeah? So try to align yourselves with the Noble Eightfold Path if you're really interested in getting rid of suffering. So the meditation, what you must be doing, whatever the meditation you do, learn to get rid of emotions, learn to get rid of unwholesome thoughts. The best way to do that, to keep the unwholesome thoughts away, best way is to hold on to a wholesome thought as long as you can, as much as you can, 24 hours. Whether you make a special time to do it, very good. In the morning 1 hour, evening 1 hour, good. Even if you can't do that, or in addition to that, you must always try throughout your daytime to do this. Then you will see the results for yourselves. How you start to become very relaxed and very calm. How your life will change. And if you really want to learn this Dhamma and practice, you all must come to retreats. Retreat is a time where you can free yourselves from all the other burdens. You pay 100% attention to Dhamma, you learn the Dhamma, and you get the opportunity to practice the Dhamma on the spot. Because there's no other thing to do. Your 100% attention can be focused to practicing the Dhamma. So for lay people, if you're really interested to know and learn Buddha's teachings, and if you really want to experience it for yourself, these teachings, whether this is true or not or what, must try to get into retreats. That's the best thing a lay person can do. And then you will start to realize things for yourselves. And then no one have to tell you come to retreats. It will naturally happen. Like you look for food, you start to look for this food for the mind, because you know this is the best thing that gives you the best happiness and peace. Because all this time in your life you were looking for this, you never got it. Because you were looking in the wrong direction. This is the right direction. You only can know it from your experience if you practice, otherwise it's my words, it's Buddha's words. Don't trust us. You put it to practice, you realize. Then only it becomes a truth for you. Until that it's only words, no? You don't know really. So wise people must try to experience this for themselves, to test it out. And Buddha says that. Buddha puts that challenge openly out there. He says, I only can be a guide. I only can show you. I only can teach you. You have to walk and experience this. I myself have managed to free myself from suffering. I live so happily and peacefully. Here is the recipe. Now then it's up to you. Okay, so I hope I have explained something very deep, but in a nutshell, in a summary form. So, do you have any other questions, brother? Apart from the meditation one. Because I don't think we can do a practical meditation right now. People will go to sleep, and also their mind is now at home. It's the Dhamma, the miracle is working, and it's still there sitting here, and the mind is here. What you can do, encourage them to come to a retreat, and you all can arrange a retreat. Then we can take it from there. Okay, So I wish you all the best, and may all the merits that you all generate help you on to penetrate into the Four Noble Truths and to attain Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Do you want transfer of merit?
Okay. So, no questions, nothing, we end it here. Okay. Let's share the merits. Let's think of our departed relatives who have given us the opportunity to be here today. Without your ancestors, without your grandparents, without your parents who are no longer here, if they are no longer, it's because of them, their sacrifice, for their support, today you can come here and listen to this Dhamma. Today you can live the life you live because of them. So let's think of all of your departed relatives, and also let's not forget our late chief, Venerable Kesri Dhammananda Thero, who actually pretty much spread the Buddhism in Malaysia. He is the forefather. And also let's think of all the other Sangha members who have sacrificed and who have worked tirelessly to bring Buddhism to this part of the country, and who has helped many people to find happiness by learning Buddhism. So let's think of all these departed venerables and your relatives, and think of them, and let's invite them. If they are in a position to partake in these merits, may they be able to partake in these merits, and may these merits bring happiness and peace wherever they are, and may these merits be a cause and condition for them to find a better existence if they are in need of one, and may these merits be a cause and condition for them also to attain Nibbana as soon as possible. Also, let's share these merits with the Devas. May the Devas rejoice in these merits, and may they also find peace and happiness. May these merits be a cause and condition for them to experience their happiness, their good fortune for a long period of time. And may these merits be a cause and condition for them to also attain Nibbana as and when they wish to attain Nibbana. Also, let's share these merits with all beings. May all beings benefit from these merits. May these merits bring happiness and peace to them wherever they are, and may these merits be a cause and condition for all of them to attain Nibbana. Keeping this mind, let's chant Ettavata ca ammehi
Tavacha hamehi
Sabbadam punya sampadam
Sampunya kasla sampam
Sabbe deva anumodantu
Sape diva anumantu
Sabbe bhuta anumodantu
Sape puta anumantu
Sabbe satta anumodantu
Sape sata anumantu
Sabba sampatti siddhiya.
Sampat hata satisnya.
Also, let's share these merits with all of you and with all of your family members, your parents, your relatives, your children, your grandchildren, your friends, and also with all the monks and nuns who help and support to run this organization, with all the committee members, with all the people who are behind organizing these Dhamma talks, these activities, and all the workers, all the supporters, all the devotees, and all the volunteers, and with all beings. May all beings and all of you benefit from these merits, and may these merits be a cause and condition for all of you to find happiness and peace, and may these merits be a cause and condition for you all to find good health, prosperity, and longevity in your life. And also may these merits be a cause and condition for you all to find success in everything that you do in your life. And also may these merits be a cause and condition for you all to penetrate into Four Noble Truths and to get rid of suffering and to attain Nibbana as soon as possible. May all of you be well, happy and peaceful. Sabbitiyo vivajjantu sabharogo vinasatu mate bhavat mantarayo sukhi dīghāyuko bhava bhavatu sabbha mangalam rakhantu sabbha devata sabbha buddhanubhavena sabbha dhammanubhavena sabbha sanghanubhavena sada sukhī